This is FYI, conversations with interesting people about fascinating projects happening in Ohio.
And I'm JT Burcham. Welcome to FYI. Today's interesting person is not a person from the Miami Valley, but boy, he is going to educate the Miami Valley today. Welcome, Jon Noyes. How are you today, sir?
Hey, Jon, I'm better than I deserve.
Yeah, good. Now, I see that hat on there. You are not a Red Sox fan, are you?
Oh, if I'm going to choose a team to root for, I'm going to choose the Red Sox. But in full disclosure, JT, man, I don't even know who the manager of the Red Sox is this season.
Well, you are in Cincinnati Red country, so you better be real careful.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, I pastor, I work at Stand to Reason, but I also pastor a small little church, co-pastor, and one of my co-pastors is a huge Reds fan. So I can join the fan base by association. How about that?
There we go. Hey, it's so nice to have you on the program today. I'm so honored, and I appreciate what you do, and I'm challenged by your wealth of knowledge. We're going to learn today. Just talking about becoming a Christian and faith. I don't talk about politics and religion nearly enough, but you're pushing me today. I understand you came to faith from not only being a non-believer, but even what people call an atheist.
Yeah.
Is that what you called yourself?
Yeah. So I would have said I was an atheist, meaning I was led by the philosophy called naturalism.
Okay.
And naturalism is simply the idea that everything that exists is the product of a purely physical process. So that means all the stars, all the galaxies, certainly our planet, and even us, we're just a random quantification of molecules, just kind of dancing to our DNA. And that's, I wasn't raised like I sometimes I say I was raised an atheist, but I was just raised without a faith. It's not like my parents were angry against God or set against God. Easter for me growing up was Easter bunnies, eggs, candy, things like that. Christmas was Santa Claus, lights, trees, and presents. And then as I matured and started living in the world like we all do, like we're looking for answers to life's most deep, like meaningful questions
Sure.
of origin, meaning, purpose, destiny, morality. I thought that the naturalistic worldview offered me those answers, the best answers that I could come to, which isn't true. I eventually blossomed and bloomed into an atheist through college, my early young professional life. And then eventually I put those beliefs to the test. I tried to live my worldview out, and I realized fairly quickly that the naturalistic story of reality is not the true story of reality.
Interesting. So what made the change? What was the straw that broke the camel's back where you said, okay, something about my thought isn't correct here?
Sure. So my the way I say is my story stats is all good stories do with I met a girl, man. And it happens this way all the time. And now I want to be clear, I'm not giving people permission to do missional dating. I'm not saying you should go out and find yourself a good non-believer and date them in hopes of converting them, because it doesn't usually work out well. But my story is that I met a girl. I had moved from Washington, D.C., where I was working at one of the nation's top law firms. And I moved from there to Southern California. And my very first night in California, I actually met my now wife, Rihanna. And her and I, as we started to get to know each other, she came out of the in air quotes, the Christian closet, so to speak. And to me, that was the worst thing in the world, because I thought Christians were stupid. I thought they were narrow-minded, they were bigoted, they were dumb. I actually thought that I would have said that the Christian worldview, the beliefs that you're trying to teach your children, number one, it's child abuse, and two, they're dangerous beliefs. So when she came out as a Christian to me, it totally rocked me, because I was falling in love with this girl, and I could not marry a Christian, one of those closed-minded, bigoted Christians. But then through the course of a number of events, relationships that came in and out of my life, people sewing into me, people talking to me, people really putting up with me, I started asking more difficult questions and being a little bit more open-minded as to maybe there's other answers that better explain the world around me. And then around the time I met my wife, she ended up actually bringing me to church. I'd never been to church. She brought me to this church in Studio City, and that pastor there gave me my first book on Christian apologetics, and I read it. And for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, the Christians aren't nearly as dumb as I thought they were. And then also my future in-laws, they gave me a Bible, my first Bible. I read that Bible cover to cover over the span of 3 months. So I was having these different interactions, right? So I have an interaction with the Word of God that was softening my spirit, my heart. And then I was having interaction with my intellect. Christian apologetics, it was giving me good reasons to believe that the Christian worldview is true. And then you combine that with looking at the world around us. And there are certain things that scream out for explanation. For example, where'd all the stuff come from? Where'd everything come from? Right? This is the formal argument is called the Kalam cosmological argument for the existence of God. We can leave that term at the door. I don't think we like these big terms. Sometimes we get lost in them. The question is what caused the beginning of the universe? What caused all the stuff? Because we all know it exists. And it's actually pretty simple. It's one of two answers. It's either something caused everything or nothing caused everything. Well, nothing comes from nothing. And this is a principle that I stood on as an atheist because I thought of myself as a very scientific person. Well, try doing science if you get something from nothing. It's impossible, right? It's a fundamental feature of the world. So that's one. But on Christian theism, atheism fails you there because all you have to start with is nothing to explain everything. But on Christian theism, you have more than nothing. You have an uncaused cause. The existence of morality is another one. It's very clear to me that there's a moral depth to the world around us. That's why we cry out for justice in the face of injustice, right? Especially right now during the political season. Before we started the interview, we mentioned that there's an election coming up, right, in the country. And notice that every issue that we're talking about is a moral issue. Well, where do we get this understanding of a moral right and wrong? Because on naturalism, I'm just merely, like I said, a quantification of molecules, man. I'm just a meat suit in motion. And there's no such thing as a moral law, because in order to have a moral law, you have to have a moral lawgiver. And on atheism, you don't have that, but on Christian theism, you do. So these are just like two of the, I guess, features. These are fundamental features of the world around us. So the question is what worldview best explains the way the world really is? What worldview gives you a better understanding of reality? Naturalism or Christian theism? And as I started butting up into reality, you see, reality is that thing that you bump into when you don't live according to it. And then those bumps, they hurt, especially when you're talking about morals and things like this. And as I kept bumping into reality, my naturalism, my atheism, it couldn't give me adequate explanations as to the way the world is that we all experience. But Christian theism could, and that really rocked me. And then theologically speaking, I mean, these arguments, they get you God. But theologically speaking, I started doing a pretty deep dive into the resurrection of Jesus. And as an atheist, I was reading these things in order to disprove the existence of God, much like Lee Strobel did, that famous Christian apologist. Because I was in love with a girl and I needed to deconvert her. That's my purpose. So I was like, if I can just show her that Jesus is a myth or Jesus's resurrection is a farce, man, that's going to be great. Then I can get married and then I can live happily ever after. Well, the joke's on me, man, right? The joke's on me that as I read the Bible, the story, it seemed true, JT. Like these stories, they didn't sound like myths, like I like to dismiss them. And then especially the resurrection, as I started reading the Gospels, the biographies of Jesus, seemed like these people are actually written history. And then I put them to historiographical tests, judging the Gospels according to how we judge every other work of history, non-biased, right? I'm a free thinker as an atheist, right? I'm non-biased. So I'm actually trying to put my worldview to the test, and I'm finding out, oh my gosh, when you apply historical standards to the Gospels, just as we do to Plato, just as we do to Aristotle, just as we do to Shakespeare, the Gospels not only meet the expectation, not only meet the criteria, but far exceed it more than any of those other works of history. And then all of a sudden, I'm finding out that I'm cooked, man. My naturalism is failing me, and Christian theism is true. And holy smokes, God exists, and Jesus is who He says He is. And keep in mind, JT, I don't want to dismiss this because it's important. It's not all a mental assent. It's not all logical thinking, right? There's a heart issue too, right? And there was a moment in time where just as many of your listeners, just as many people watching this today, you come to realize that you're not nearly as good of a person as you think you are. You know, I had a deep sense of guilt. And I think that we all have a deep sense of guilt. That's why, like look at pop psychology and the things that we go through such extreme lengths today to explain away guilt. Well, maybe we feel because we are guilty. And on atheism, what am I guilty of? It goes back to the moral standard. And more than that, JT, on atheism, on naturalism, where do I not only just take my guilt, but where do I get forgiveness? This deep-seated need for forgiveness. And when I realized these things, I realized the only answer is Christ and his cross. And so the Holy Spirit, of course, is working on me, not just mental assent, but he's reconciling my spirit, my heart. And he made me new. So praise God, JT. I hope that was a quick explanation.
I love that story. And your story. I love that. Now, you mentioned politics and the election going on. So let's go there for a moment.
Absolutely.
Abortion is in such a now. The reason I ask this is because now, with Stand to Reason, you actually do tour and speak and talk to groups and talk to students about all these issues, atheism and the like. So when I ask you about abortion, I'm not just popping this out of nowhere. You are a professional in the area and you have a great perspective. So I'm listening. Why do we struggle so much with abortion in America? Sure,
JT. It's a really good question. One is I'm just like you. I'm just like all your listeners, man. I really am. I've just read maybe one more book, and I stand on the shoulders of giants, just like we all do. And I say this because we can all get engaged in the conversation. The reason why it's sometimes so difficult is because we engage in the conversation, especially about abortion, is it's such an emotionally charged topic, as it should be. Sure. We're talking about the taking of innocent human lives. Yeah. And that's the key issue. And this is where I think, and when I watch the political stage, when I'm viewing the people on the political stage, whatever candidates they might be, whatever political party they're from, I get so frustrated because the issue gets obscured by things that aren't really the issue. The issue is always comes down to one question and one question alone. And if you guys can remember this, you'll go so far in your conversations about abortion. The question is when is it acceptable? When is it okay to take the life of an innocent human being? When is that okay? So when anybody brings up an objection, well, it's a woman's choice. I agree. Women should be able to choose just about anything. My body, my choice. Absolutely, choose whatever you want. But the question is when is it okay to take the life of an innocent human being? Not is it okay to make a choice with your own body? When is that acceptable? And that's something that every political candidate needs to answer. And they need to answer that directly. So if I'm on the debate stage or if I am on the political stage making stump speeches, I am asking people that question directly, and I'm not letting them squirm out of it. I'm going to say, when is it okay, according to you, when is it a moral good to take the life of an innocent human being? And because the science of embryology tells us that this is not a Christian view, by the way. This is a scientific view. You can't. I mean, they're the same, but the scientific view, the science of embryology, tells us that life starts at conception. Yeah. So when is it okay to take that life?
Yeah. Great question. I don't have that answer, of course, but
yeah.
Jon Noyes, thank you so much for spending time with us. Now, you can be found online, str.org. You're always talking and sharing and educating the youth of America. Thank you so much for what you do. Why should people go to str.org? What are they going to see there?
Yeah, so our mission is to train Christians to think through these difficult issues, not for your own benefit. Yes, you'll benefit personally from it. You will grow in your spiritual understandings. You'll grow closer to God. But it's in the hopes that hopefully that we are then reflecting the glory of God, reflecting God's answers out in the community, out in the spheres of influence that God's placed us in, so that we can have a true impact and be used by him to build his kingdom here and now. So, and then at str.org, you'll find all the resources. We don't charge for a thing. The only time we charge is if we come out speaking. And even then, half the time I feel like I'm doing it for free. And then because we're passionate about what we're doing, because we want to have an impact, and we want to help you have an impact by training you.
Yeah. Jon Noyes, str.org. Thank you so much for being here today.
My privilege, JT. Thank you.